Morning, everyone.
Good morning, teacher.
Good morning, teacher.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing fine.
Yes.
So sorry, I would like to warn you that I'm not using the visual aids today, unfortunately, because I've lost my keys and I cannot access to nor to my home or to my office. So I'm not having a computer. So I'm just going to narrate the lecture today. Hope you're doing fine. Is that thing? Yeah. So very much sorry about it. I didn't plan to lose my keys today, but it happens. So, but anyone who finds the keys with the brown leather key ring, please, that would be lovely if you could let me know that you found it. That would be lovely. And I would appreciate that thing. Thank you very much. So, today we will be discussing, or we will be having a look at the pedagogical value of stylistics and at the, let's say, the connection between stylistics and applied sciences, applied linguistics. So guys, do you know what applied linguistics is? Anyone? What applied linguistics is for you?
I'm not sure, but like for example, last year I had a course in university. It was called Applied Linguistics, like research in applied linguistics. Is it similar to that or no?
Well, I do not know the content of your course, so I cannot say whether it is
Like
similar or not.
like
It
we
is.
wrote, like we used our knowledge of linguistics, and then we created research on it, like in order to show how we applied our knowledge of linguistics in real life experiments or real life research, for example, like that.
Mm,
Is
it
it
may
related
be something
to
like
real life
that.
problems? Like,
Yep, Edward, thank you very much. Yeah, so mainly it's about the real life problems in the field of linguistics. So when we're talking about the applied linguistics, it is commonly understood by the people that it is about investigation. It can be both theoretic investigation or empirical investigation, but it is about the investigation of real world problems, real life problems in which the language or language in use and communication are coming as central issues when the communication, especially English communication, yeah, in terms of in the context of English as a second language, it is about the being as the priority in applied linguistics. And so, as Ayana, right? Ayana has mentioned, applied linguistics, of course, draws centrally on linguistics, but it also looks at the other disciplines. So we would say that in that very term, stylistics is also can be applied, can be considered as the field of applied linguistics. And actually, stylistics is already widely recognized as the applied, as the, let's say, as the one of the parameters of applied linguistics. Why? Because many journals, international journals of applied linguistics, many conferences of applied in the topic of applied linguistics, they are considering stylistics as one of the parameters of applied linguistics. So as we have mentioned before, applied linguistics is about language and communication. So stylistics has a lot to do with that language and communication as well. that is about it. So in what ways we will talk about it further. So actually, I would like to know your opinions about the connection between applied linguistics and stylistics. What do you think? In what ways these two linguistic fields can be connected to each other? Anyone? What is the connection between stylistics and applied linguistics, in your opinion? I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Maybe like it's in my own opinion, actually applied linguistics, if I'm not mistaken, if you said like it helps to investigate the real life problems, that it means that probably it helps people kind of improve the communication, right, between each other. And maybe the central topic between the applied linguistic and the stylistics is maybe the communication between people, because with the help of stylistics, for instance, we are able to understand the mode, the tone of the people, right? The tenor that they use whenever they speak in their speech, for instance. And applied linguistics also help us to improve the communication. Well, maybe
Yeah,
something like this.
yeah, thank you very much, Laura. Right to the point, actually. Yeah, quite precise answer, quite nice explanation of the connection between them. So yeah, mainly, as we have mentioned, applied linguistics is about these real world problems, and not about real world problems relating to language, right? So nowadays it is considered relating to language learning, relating to teaching. So, and all of this language and teaching thing connected with the aspects of human communication. So that is the reason I agree with Laura a lot that actually stylistics is helping us as well. So um, actually, so what is understood by language learning? It is not only about the school, it's not only about the university. Mainly, applied linguistics can have some kind of connection to communication in professional fields like law, yeah, in translation, in health communication, and also it is applied linguistics looks at the forensics, looks at the communication disorders, yeah. So it's mainly again having a look at the practical and transactional orientation, transaction of the thoughts, transaction of the ideas, and etc. etc. So if we say, like in a direct way, applied linguistics is all about human communication. That is about it. So now you may ask how stylistics has to do, what stylistic has to do with the human communication. Well, actually, the main focus of stylistics is the literature, right? As we know. But if you guys remember from the previous topics, when we discussed especially the syntax, when we discussed the cohesion, right? Last two, or even at the week of morphology and phonetics, we discussed how the literature, how the deviations and foregroundings help us to understand others, yeah, in what ways the authors and poets and writers are using foregroundings or actualization in order to communicate with us, in order to transfer their thoughts. So it is all called literary communication. So actually, literary communication is appeared as one of the most significant, one of the most and highly valued forms of human communication. Remember when we covered the history of stylistics, we looked at the rhetorics, we looked at the poetics, and we remember that Plato, depends on your way of pronunciation his name, he was not into these two particular ways of human communication because he was of the opinion that both rhetoric and poetics are quite dangerous for the society as they are not rational enough, they're full of emotions. So when we usually use emotions and use some kind of context, emotional context, it is when we are communicating. So that is the reason we can say that stylistics, and especially research and stylistics, i.e. saying stylistic analysis, is primarily focusing on human communication and the way communication in the literature is functioning and let's say making some kind of influence on us. So it is the way, it is the reason why applied linguistics has a lot to do with stylistics and respectively stylistics with applied linguistics. In that very sense, they are, let's say, clear commonalities in that very sense. Yeah. And even though the relationship between the fields, these two fields, are not clear-cut ones, we still can say that stylistics is some kind of a form of applied linguistics nowadays. So actually, if you have a look at the journals of applied linguistics, if you have a look at the international associations for applied linguistics, that is called AILA or ILA, you will find out that many, let's say, shapes of stylistic research, stylistic analysis, stylistic peculiarities are being discussed in those journals. Yeah, and nowadays, actually, stylistics became, as we call it, institutionalized. Yeah, because we are using stylistics in academia. It is being taught at universities, and it has some kind of respect in professional associations, let's say. Yeah? Even though some scholars do not like the implication of course of stylistics into academia, many still consider that it has some crucial influence on the let's say general literacy of students. Yeah, so we can say that it is still applied linguistics, still respects stylistics in any kind of form, especially in academia. So as I actually told you in the very beginning of the course, stylistics is not only about the literature, right? Stylistics can be applied to both literary and non-literary modes of stylistics. Yeah. So sorry, of text. Sorry. Yeah. So stylistics is not only about literary text, and let's say like that. So when we are looking at the literary texts, we understand that those literary texts, they include a lot of human communication. Yeah. So you would say that literary stylistics is concerned with displaced communication. So what is displaced communication? Actually, disposition in applied linguistics is a wonderful term that is considered as something of an of a communication about things that are not immediately present, that is not immediately present spatially or temporarily. So when we are talking about the displacement in linguistics, it is some kind of a capability of language to communicate about the things that are not here and not, let's say, either not here at the moment and are not here now at the moment. So it's about both space and time. When things are not in a direct mode, and when the things are um, not in the current state or current condition, current state of the time and space. So it's about that thing. So, and so literally stylistics is concerned with the disposition or displaced communication when communication is not happening at the current time in the very place that you are situating. Yeah, but actually, if we have a look at the world itself is created in literary texts. And actually, these literary texts, they correspond to the real world. So even though the language um, in that literary texts is mimetic, yeah, as we call it, mimetic, if you remember the mimesis, yeah, I hope you guys remember what mimesis is, right? It's according to
Imitation.
imitation, yeah. So the language used in the literary text, they are quite mimetic, yeah. Even though still literary texts, they can represent our communication, even though it is displaced, still we can consider it as something that literary text, something that sorry, that help us to understand human communication. Actually, I bet that many many students, many students in our university are probably have probably learned to communicate through reading, through watching films, through interacting with literary texts. Yeah, because in those literary books, in literature, we see how people interact in real life, and we are trying to imitate, trying to have a look at it and trying to adapt the way they are presenting the information, presenting the thoughts, acting in some way. So maybe for modern students, or sorry, for modern people, it's not the case, but when there was no internet, usually people used to get the knowledge about the world, especially the communicative knowledge about the interaction with the outside world through literature. So through reading the books, through reading poems, watching TV, and all that stuff. Yeah, so that is about it. That is the reason we consider that even though it's not a direct or simple, let's say, two-way model of human communication, literature still can be considered as the contributor to the human to the understanding of human communication. So actually we have the second type of the stylistics. It's like when we are analyzing non-literary texts. So usually in stylistics and discourse analysis, we are having a look at the texts from media discourse, from the probably real world news, yeah, real world speeches of different politicians, yeah, and even though, sorry, even we are looking at the some kind of a dialects between characters in the films, So, for example, I know many scholars who made in some kind of a research into the language of Harry Potter. And I remember also one research paper which was supportedly written by Elena Simino. She's an Italian stylistician working at Lancaster University, and she actually made a review on the speech of a person who suffered from mental illness that is called schizophrenia. So she was looking at the tone, mode, and cohesive peculiarities of the speech of that very person. So it helped. Actually, this research helped the people, yeah, who surrounds that very person with the mental illness to understand him more, to understand his behavior, to understand his thoughts, and the way he produced the ideas and opinions. Actually, analysis of the speech, analysis of the any kind of speech texts can be helpful, yeah, in many ways. We actually will talk about it in the next let's say in the following minutes. Right. So as we call it, as we call stylistics as the part of the applied sciences, so stylistics as the application to non-literary text, they can be found in the studies of scientific language, studies of registers of different curriculum subjects, and we can also find out the stylistic analysis that assist in the processes of language teaching and learning. And actually this kind of type of stylistics that helps us in the process of language teaching, language learning, is quite close to the concerns of applied linguistics. And it is helping us to investigate the real life problems of language acquisition mainly. So, however, stylistics that is applied to literary text does not much constitute to real life problems in that very sense, but I would say that again, it offers us models for better understanding of the range of problems in human communication. And actually, it might make it more central to the pursuit of key feature applied linguistic issues. So, application of stylistics into in literary text, it can also mean that it follows a path that is not much directly related to linguistics, but it is closely allied to disciplines as psychology, sociology, or philosophy. So you guys may remember that last, let's say 4 weeks, yeah, we looked at the different texts, primarily literary texts, and we had a look at the ways writers and poets express themselves through foregroundings, through any kind of stylistic devices. They were trying to transfer some kind of emotions. They were trying to explain some kind of things implicitly without telling about it, yeah, through the making some kind of hints to us to, let's say, to transfer some kind of I don't know whether emotions they are or ideas and opinions that cannot be acquired on the level of explicit direct communication. So it is about that very psychological ways, psychological techniques that can help us to understand how humanity communicates with each other. So it's about it. Right. And what I would like to tell about the pedagogical stylistics. So actually, there are many stylistic journals, yeah, and they are looking at the range of areas of stylistics. They are looking at the empirical studies of reader response, yeah, in reading groups. It is looking at the cognitive stylistics, where they are investigating the cognitively rooted accounts of the experience of the texture, yeah, of reading, when they are looking at how the analysis of the text is, let's say, training our cognitive skills of understanding the authentic texts. It's about it. Yeah, it also looks at the creativity in language. It is looking at the styling in the speaking, in the spoken discourse of especially teenagers and young people. And also, I remember the works of Hanauer, works of Swan and Mabin, who looked at the application of poetry in the foreign language classrooms, second language classrooms, yeah. So how we can learn languages through poetry. These are the ways of applying stylistics in the empirical investigation of the usefulness of stylistics. So if we have a look at the pedagogical stylistics. So what is pedagogical stylistics? It is application of stylistic analysis in the classroom, in the, let's say, second language acquisition, when we are teaching our students to read better through the stylistic analysis, to understand the human communication in the second language better. So imagine, is it better for the student if you read the, let's say, poem with them together and make the stylistic analysis? Or is it better if you just give that very poetry for them to read at home without doing the stylistic analysis? Which one is the best thing for you? Which one is better, sorry, not the best thing. So is it better to give a task to your students, yeah, to your future students, to your current students? For instance, you took a poetry, yeah, and you are telling your students, please apply the stylistic analysis and try to understand the content of that very poem, sorry, or just give a poem by without any kind of particular analysis, by saying just try to understand it and try to read it. Which one is best way of understanding the human communication? How do you think?
The stylistic analysis.
Okay, so in what ways, guys, do you think it is better to apply the stylistic analysis?
For example, while we are kind of asking students to do the stylistic analysis, they lean into the language more. They analyze all those syntactic, lexical differences. I don't know, specialties, and of course they will understand the text more.
Okay, thank you.
For example,
Thank you, Masha.
when we've talked about the autumn poem by Keats, I didn't know that earlier they wrote the ed ending with the apostrophe, that kind of things.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Marshan, for your opinion. So, yeah, guys, actually, even though some of you may not let's say notice the usefulness of stylistic analysis in reading, yeah, in reading literature, I would like to say that when you are doing the stylistic analysis, you are forced to do the close reading. So what is close reading? It is when you are making proper reading of each line of the poem or each line of the narrative. You are making the quality reading when you are trying to understand each word, looking at the structure of each sentence, meditating on it, why it was presented in that way, and asking the questions like why it was presented in that way, why it is so so different from other texts, for example, looking at the mode, looking at the tone of the text. You are actually learning a lot, and you may probably let's say get some kind of knowledge out of it, and you may adapt some behavior or some kind of a representation of your emotions from the characters in the narrative or novel or whatever it is. Or you may just find out that you can use some peculiar foregrounding devices in order to make your speech more vivid, to make it more let's say make it more successful in the eyes of your listeners. So it's about it. It's not only about so actually stylistic analysis is not only about just trying to finding out the foregrounding devices. It has some kind of meaning, yeah, it has some kind of value as well. So actually many scholars looked at the pedagogical value of stylistics, and actually many of them have found it, yeah. And we can say that pedagogical stylistics does address real world classroom, English classroom problems. And it is having a look at the ways of coding, ways of making better reading. And you can have a look at the works of Watson, Singer, Chisnakova, and Yakoba. These are the stylisticians from one of the university in Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken, Kiev International University, I don't remember. Also Mick Short and Elena Simino from Lancaster University, they're also wonderful stylisticians. And we have several authors from Asian context as well, if I'm not mistaken. I don't really remember the names of the scholars, but I remember one wonderful scholar who made an experiment of using stylistic analysis in the classroom, and she was from Thailand, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, there are many scholars from China. Yeah, they make a lot. They are very hardworking people, aren't they? Chinese people, and they are making a lot of progress in that very sense. So, what about pedagogy? Yeah, how stylistic can be applied in teaching? So, actually, when the literature is being taught in the classroom, and it is usually it's not being paid much attention, yeah, in the way in which the literature works as a text. We are just looking at the literature as the representation of culture. We're looking at it as the representation of some kind of habits of the target of the nation that who are speaking the target language, yeah. And about the history, we are looking at the chronology of the events that happened in the history of the nation, yeah, let's call them target nation. And mainly it's about facts and biography of the authors, right? But we don't really look at the literature as literature works as we are looking at the text. We're not at it seriously from the linguistic side. We're just looking at it as some kind of art, yeah, or the let's say knowledge that may help us to understand the culture of the target nation. But of course, there are many teachers as well who are teaching not only the normal reading of the texts, but are looking at the peculiarities of the language in that literature. Yeah, and to be honest, I think not that many students in our university are much common with the English literature, right? So can you please guys tell me, are you into literature? Were you taught English literature at school or at university much? Do you know, have you looked at the linguistic peculiarities of literary texts when you were at school or at university, in other courses? Did you have some kind of analysis of these literary texts? Not?
Only in this course. Previously, have never analyzed texts, poems, actually.
Yeah, we also
Okay.
have never analyzed at school, but like maximum, we found some, I don't know, maybe metaphor in lines, but I have never thought that even every line, every word, sounds have meaning. It's new. It was new for me.
Okay, I see. So, okay, right, sorry. So it is about the problem of the educational, maybe education, yes, system. So it's not the thing that is common to in Kazakhstan only. It is quite a widespread tendency all over the world, even in countries where English is the native language. They do not look at the literature as something scientific or something linguistic. Mainly, when discussing literature, they are, let's say, looking at the peculiarities of human communication in terms of psychology, again, in terms of philosophies, and making some kind of I'm very sorry to say that, but vague, yeah, and very uncertain. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, teacher.
Yes, teacher.
Oh, fine. Thanks God. Thanks God. Um, so, after that, did you hear anything, guys? Seems like you did not hear anything that I was talking. Okay. So, guys, is the problem is that we have not, when even at university levels in many parts of the world, where even where stylistics is becoming more widespread, stylistics is not, sorry, literature is not being presented in the way that it should. Yeah. So someone writes me. Okay. I hope you can hear me now. Anyways, so it's not peculiar only to Kazakhstan. So many students, even from native speaker countries, they admit that they did not read literary text in the way they should have read in order to accomplish the stylistic analysis. So they, let's say, they confess they are not having read much literature. Even literature was not read by them. So, can you hear me again? Yep.
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
Here.
Right. Okay. Right. So it's a common problem. Yeah. If you have a look at it, you will find out that many pedagogic works, the interface between language and literature, they attempted over a number of years to address that very situation, that people do not read much literature in the target language. Yeah. even though it is like we are increasing our consumption of literature at university level, literature is not much taught in the language classroom, especially in the schools where language is is presented as a second language. I don't know how it was at your school, but I do not remember having classes of English literature. Yeah, I'm not talking about English literature. Sometimes we didn't have the classes of English language because of the lack of the teachers. Yeah, that's quite a problem. It used to be quite a problem in Kazakhstan years ago. So these are the problems that exist. Yeah, and actually, if we could implement analysis, stylistic analysis, in when we teach literature, that could be way way easier for students later to understand really how the language functions in literature, how the language functions in non-literary texts as well, and how they can make their speech better, whether it is written or oral, does not really much does not play a huge role, right? Whether it is written or oral, but it helps the analysis of the texts help us to understand how to how to play with the language, let's say, how to involve foregrounding, how to avoid repeated patterns in the texts, in the, let's say, in our language. Yeah. So actually, you can use any kind of texts when you will be maybe teaching how to read. You can have a look at the advertisements, text of the advertisements. You can have a look at the political rhetorics, as we have had a look at the Obama speech. You may probably have a look at the nursery rhymes, and you can have a look at the jokes. You can have a look at the song text, lyrics of the songs, at the riddles, and at the excerpts from film scripts. And that would be lovely if you could implement such close reading that is incorporated with the stylistic analysis when you teach reading. For me, I benefited a lot from studying stylistics and studying applying stylistic analysis. Well, back then, at our university, we didn't have the courses of preparing for the IELTS exam or the preparation. We didn't have the academic English classes. We didn't have anything. We didn't know how to write the theses and diploma papers and dissertations. So actually, stylistics helped a lot in terms of we saw how we should compose our plot. We knew how to make our speech more creative, how to speak in a clear, better, clearer, better way. So actually, stylistic analysis has a wide range of benefits, yeah, and it can be a great stimulus for developing creative writing. Yeah, if you guys write some kind of things, if you guys write poems or maybe texts in English or in target language, applying stylistic analysis to the existing literary text can be a lot beneficial. You can think about it. Yeah. So guys, I'm not going to take a lot of time of yours. What I would like you to do is to have a look at the two articles that I'm going to upload to the Moodle. So the first article is by Ronald Carter. It is called Stylistics as Applied Linguistics. That would be lovely if you read only first 6 pages, I would say. So the topics of applied linguistics and stylistics, and about stylistics and pedagogy. So no need to have a look at the topic of changes in stylistics. It's about stylistics in its some kind of different types. Yeah, it's not much about classroom and language teaching. It's mostly looking at the cognitive side of it, looking at the different, let's say, directions in stylistics, the spoken stylistics, at the corpus stylistics, and you don't much need it. So first 6, I would say first 6 pages would be enough till the changes in stylistics. And the second article, I think you will find it well because it is written by our Ukrainian mates, yeah, Chesnakova and Yakuba, and language is quite okay for you guys. And in that very article, you will know much about the methodology of stylistics. You will know that actually in post-Soviet countries, methodology of stylistics was quite antique, yeah, ancient, because back then people used to lean on the works of Soviet and Russian scholars, especially the works of Vinogradov, Galperin, yeah, and one more, I forgot his name. Oh God. Okay, you will see it in the article. Actually, the article is quite interesting because the settings that are being described in the article are quite similar to the settings of Kazakhstani classrooms. And the author is presenting the benefits of stylistics and using stylistic analysis in teaching English at university level. You will find out all the lovely information there. If you have any questions, you can ask me now because we are finishing the lecture. Any questions regarding the topic?
Have to read the first 6 pages, or
You will have 2 articles. The first one is by Ronald Carter, and you have to read first 6 pages of it. And the second article, by Chesnakova and Yakova, you should read the whole article, the whole text of it. Yeah. But of course, I will leave the guides on the Moodle as well. Okay. Right, if you do not have any questions, guys, I would like to say bye-bye to you, and please read the articles anyways, because some information from them will be implemented into the final exams. So please do not ignore that. Okay? Have a lovely day and take a good care of yourselves. I hope you are pretty ready for the midterms. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.